Hello, today we will be reading Field Trips Always and Terribly by Itslivybear on AO3. This will be Chapter 3, the 20-step program to convert someone to villainy. Summary: Aizawa starts building a team to take the kidnapping case, while Midoriya wakes up and finds out what the hell Sensei did to him. Tomura, meanwhile, starts the conversion plan. Aizawa slammed the phone down, cursing the ridiculous, bigoted hero he had had on the line. That marked the fourth hero who had looked promising, but as soon as the word quirkless came up, they claimed they had too much on their plate already. Bastards. As if someone could be worth less because of a lack of quirk. Of all the kids in his class, Midoriya worked the hardest, fought the longest, and cared the strongest. If anyone was going to be a great hero one day, it was that kid. But most people couldn't see past the arbitrary label that had been slapped on him at age 4 and dismissed him as a lost cause. One of the heroes had the audacity to say that he'd either be dead or a villain by the end of the week. It was all the quirkless were good for, after all. He hung his head in his hands, massaging his forehead to alleviate the ache from being angry for so long. Hisashi came up behind him, setting a coffee on the table behind him. No luck. They don't even know him. They know nothing about him, not his skill, his heart, his drive. They just say they're busy. They weren't busy when I first brought it up, but oh, he's quirkless. Why is he even in the hero program? This wasn't going to happen eventually anyway. A shame, but nothing we can do about it. God, it drives me up the wall. The voice hero hummed, looking at the list of heroes he was planning on calling. How many have you called? 4, all too busy. Well, you have me and them, probably all the staff here if nothing else. Aizawa sighed. Yes, and you all have jobs here. That makes it difficult for you to get away. We all have other kids we also need to help, as much as it hurts. And we can't sacrifice all of them for one kid, even if it's yours. He stiffened, eyes blazing red as he whirled around. Just because I've been training him. Sho, relax. We know. The blond man smiled wryly. You're his teacher and you watched him get taken. It's not gonna sit well with you. He sighed, letting his hair fall, turning back to the list with a pen. Help me get rid of the bigots before I call them and bite their heads off. Aye, aye, Captain. Woke up slowly in a concrete room on a twin bed pushed up against the wall. His head hurt something fierce, the soft lights not hurting or helping. He sat up, looking around in confusion. This wasn't his room. It came back to him in a flash, and he clutched his head, partly in pain and partly in fear, trying to remember what had happened. Sensei had grabbed his head, only to come up blank. Pain, then nothing. Knowing he had fallen unconscious, he gazed around the room, trying to get his bearings. Other than the bed, there was a dresser and a door, no handle on this side. The walls and floor were just poured concrete, bleak and barren, with a single fluorescent light in the ceiling. The door opened and he clenched the sheets in fear. Whoa! Tomura put his hands up placatingly. Relax, it's just me. You're probably hungry, so come on. He left, waiting just outside the door, and Izuku hesitantly got out of bed, bare feet touching the cold floor. He couldn't help the shiver that went up his spine, and he padded out softly, trying to keep an eye on the villain in front of him. The guy slid his hands in his pockets, pinky on the outside, and raised just slightly as he led him down the corridor and leaded to the bar. He tried to note his surrounding, but the winding corridors and discomfort in his head quickly made it a jumbled mess. Tomura slid onto one of the bar stools and patted the one beside him as Kurogiri set 2 plates on the bar. Izuku eyed the door, noting the lack of restraints on him, but glanced back to see yellow eyes watching him and his every move. Darn, probably no escape for him today then. He slid into the seat, picking up the chopstick set aside for him and taking a careful bite, keeping his eyes trained on the guy beside him.
You know, I'm not really sure why you wanted to be a hero.
He started, almost dropping his chopsticks, and swallowed. What do you mean? The blue-haired man hummed.
I mean, your life sucked ass.
Izuku stiffened and paled. What? Red Eye slid to his green ones.
Yeah, that Bakugo guy and his cronies. Real piece of work. Hell, even your mom was lackluster at best.
He bristled. My mom did her best.
I mean, sure, if you call the bare minimum her best.
She she didn't.
Yeah, you're right. She didn't. Didn't support your dreams, didn't realize you were being bullied, didn't try to help you. She really did a shit job of being a parent.
He swallows. How would you even know? Dry lips cracked into a wide grin.
Sensei read your memories.
His hand flew to his head, pain flaring up all at once.
Don't worry.
Tomura turned back to his food.
He didn't do anything else. He just wanted to see what we were dealing with and how best to make you comfortable.
I I was perfectly comfortable at UA.
Yeah, you had what? Two friends, one teacher, one good teacher, the first one in a while. Let me tell you something, Izuku.
He got up, played clear, and flipped the TV onto the news.
You see that?
It was showing a hero fight, Endeavor taking down a metal-looking villain. Yeah, what about it?
You've been here for a day, not even 24 hours yet. Yesterday, the attack on UA was all over the news. Anchors lamenting that poor captured student, and all the people rushed to the hospital.
His breath caught, thinking of the state his teacher had been in when he had left.
But today, now that the news has gotten out that you're just a quirkless charity case, UA accepted into their hero program. Not a single word about you. No more use on your USJ. It was such a tragedy, but it's okay. There were minimal injuries, and only one useless kid was taken. So no harm, no foul.
Izuku clenched his fist. That can't be right. He flipped through the other news channels, none of them reporting about the USJ.
And yet, it is. Society is corrupt. They don't see your value.
And I suppose you do? He turned off the TV again, turning back to face a small boy still seated at the bar.
Yep.
He sucked over, looming over the boy with no expression.
Wanna play video games?
Izuku almost stumbled off the bar stool in his surprise. What?
Video games. Some aren't as fun to play by myself.
He nodded slowly, still confused, and the guy lit up.
Cool, come on.
He followed Tomura back into the winding halls until they came to a door that he swung open. Inside, it looked like a regular teenager's bedroom, with a bed, various posters and furniture, and a couch in front of a TV, hooked up to various gaming stations with a few attached controllers. Tomura plopped down on the ground and offered one to him, and he gingerly took it and sat gently, body tense. Tomura loaded up a game that looked like a fighting game that Izuku had heard about, but he hadn't really been a player of video games as a kid, mostly just watching hero fights and looking at cool quirks. He didn't even know the controls as the character selection screen came up. The game was full of cartoon characters that looked completely out of place with one another, but he thought it was probably the game company's other franchises. So he used one of the joystick to move his cursor and picked one at random.
Pit, good choice.
Tomura picked a character, or was it two, that the game labeled as the Ice Climbers, what looked to be a brother and a sister that were dressed warmly and had a giant wooden hammer. He looked back at his angel boy with his bow, swords, and didn't know whether to be excited or afraid. He completely missed the pickings of stage before the fight began, and he hopelessly mashed button, using the joystick to hopefully move around and avoid the hammers swinging for his face. In seemingly no time flat he had been knocked off, and not even his wings could save him. He flinched as the angel boy died in a fiery and violent explosion from off-screen before appearing on a floating disc above the stage again. By his third death, Tomura paused the game.
Okay, you suck. Why are you so bad at this game?
I've never played before? There was a beat before he sighed, setting down his controller.
Do you even know the controls?
No? It came out as a squeak, and it wasn't helped by the snort he got out of the older boy.
Yeah, that explains why you suck so hard. Right. A to attack or pick up items. Also to use items. B is your special attack. This button is a shield, but if you use it too much, it will stun you. And this is how you jump. I think you figured out movement.
Without another word, he picked up his controller again and unpaused the game, not even giving Izuku a moment to breathe before he was back to beating him into next year. Granted, knowing which buttons did what was really helpful, so he managed to get some damage in, and even got Tomura killed once, which merited him a grunt and a
good job.
But eventually, time was called and the Ice Climbers were announced the undisputed winner, having killed him about 20 times to his 3. They went a few more rounds, Izuku glancing at the older boy every once in a while as he relaxed a little. He played with his pinkies up, probably because of his quirk, and between rounds he'd massage his hands, no doubt cramping after holding a rigid position for so long. No response. Tomura? Red eyes flashed to his.
Yeah?
Have you tried wearing gloves? His eyes narrowed in confusion and he frowned.
What?
I mean, for your quirk? He huffed, turning back to the game.
I'll just disintegrate them too.
No, like artist glove with only some fingers. It's a 5-point touch, right? So if some of your fingers are covered but not all of them, you'll be able to hold things normally? He looked at his hand.
Ah, they make those?
Izuku nodded eagerly, thinking of other 5-point quirks he knew. Yeah, lots of people have 5-point quirks that are a hassle in everyday life, so they make special gloves so they can still actually hold things without getting hand cramps from holding weird positions. With a hum of acknowledgement, he got up, going to his closet to riffle through things before pulling out a pair of gloves, all fingers still attached. He opened a drawer at his desk and took out a pair of scissors, carefully cutting off 2 of the fingers on each glove before slipping them on carefully. He grabbed at the cut of his finger hesitantly with all 5 of his fingers, 3 covered, and watched as nothing happened.
Huh.
Izuku fidgeted nervously, once again reminded exactly where he was, and not drawn into the joy that was quirks, as Tomura sat back down and picked up his controller again, just as gently. He set the last finger on and breathed a sigh of relief as nothing happened, looking to Izuku with a sly smile.
Thanks, Rogue. That's pretty clever.
Oh, yeah, don't mention it. He turned back to the game with a silent scream, trying not to think too hard on what he had just witnessed and helped. Sure, there was probably no real way for this to be used for evil, but he was still helping a villain. He watched as Peach pushed Luigi off the stage
Play him. He's green like you.
another time and hesitated at that thought. Tomura didn't really seem like a villain in this instant. No, he reprimanded himself, shaking himself out of his doubt. He had disintegrated Aizawa Sensei's elbow and kidnapped him. There was really no coming back from that. The older boy was a villain. He swallowed down his discomfort as the victory screen flashed once more. He had to find a way out of here. One last call, Sho. He rubbed his eyes, tired. They had a sizable list of heroes who had agreed to join the case and one last call to make. He wasn't counting on anything coming of this, but then the list would be over and they could actually get to work. Still, the guy had a good track record in the underground, especially for trafficking cases and organized crime. Hello, is this the Night Eye Agency? And there, so that was chapter 3 of Field Trips Always End Terribly. I will once again tell everyone to go leave kudos to the original fic. The author actually wrote some notes that are pretty funny. They say they have a 20-step program called All for Ones slash My Plan to Convert Mido to Villainy. And one of the steps is classical conditioning is your friend. So that is a little preview of what Izuku will be living. I believe. And yeah, anyways, I hope everyone has a good night.